Welcome to A Terrible Beauty is Born, San Francisco's response to the 1916 Easter Rising in Ireland. Money, guns, words. Easter week, 1916, Dublin, Ireland. Irish nationalists launched an armed rebellion with the objective of establishing an independent republic. The Easter Rising started a series of events which culminated in the formation of the Republic of Ireland, made up of 26 of the 32 counties of Ireland. News of the rising quickly spread to the Irish community in San Francisco, where they responded with money, guns, and words. The Irish in America played a significant role in the planning and funding of the struggle for Ireland's independence from the British. In the years before and after the Rising, the San Francisco Irish supported the cause through their donations of money and guns and by countering British propaganda. Excerpts from 100-year-old minutes and from the Irish Catholic Leader newspaper tell the San Francisco story. The most fascinating stories are the oral histories that have been passed on from generation to generation about what was happening in San Francisco in 1916. While the precise details have changed slightly in the retelling of the stories, they are a reflection of what was happening in secret, away from the newspapers and the formal minutes of the associations. It is said that a sheriff from Lagunitas, after confiscating guns from his prisoners, would file off the serial numbers and send them to Ireland for the volunteers, and a group of Irish nationalists raided the armory on 14th Street, stole guns, and sent them over to Ireland. At a later date, one of the guns was found on a dead Irish rebel in Ireland. And a group of Irish patriots were invited to a gathering in the early 1900s, allegedly to discuss the political situation in Ireland. After they all arrived, the lights were doused. When the lights were turned back on, they all departed, leaving behind many guns on the floor. The guns were transported to Ireland, where one was seen in Ireland in 1975. And can you believe it? Volunteers drilled with rifles outside the old Hibernian Hall at 454 Valencia Street. Peter York, outstanding communicator and Irish nationalist. Father York, Galway-born pastor of St. Peter's Church and editor of San Francisco Leader newspaper, promoted the cause of Irish nationalism before and after the Rising. An outstanding communicator, he kept the Irish community in San Francisco informed about what was really happening in Ireland through his speeches and his articles in the Leader. Father York encouraged them to donate money to the cause and organized fundraising rallies with the Friends of the Irish Freedom, including hosting such notables as Hannah Sheehy Skiffington. Hannah Sheehy Skiffington tours the United States. In the years following the Rising, prominent participants in the Rising and the War of Independence and their surviving family members toured the Bay Area, fundraising and informing the Irish Americans of what was really happening in Ireland. Hannah Sheehy Skiffington, who packed Dreamland Rink in April 1917, was the wife of Francis Sheehy Skiffington, who was murdered by a British officer during the Rising. Welcomed by San Francisco sympathizers, she received a letter of sympathy from the Rebel Cork ladies. The following is an excerpt from the Rebel Cork Ladies Association minutes, March 2, 1917. A motion that a letter of encouragement be sent to Mrs. Blank, the lady that her husband was murdered during Easter week in Ireland by the English government. She is touring the United States. Robert Emmett and Irish nationalism. After escaping from prison in 1919, Eamon de Valera, hero of the Rising and future president of the Republic, visited San Francisco on a fundraising tour and dedicated the statue of Robert Emmett, who led the unsuccessful 1803 rebellion of the United Irishmen. Robert Emmett was a hero to the Irish Republicans of the early 1900s, including Padraig Pearse, who used commemoration of Emmett's death as an opportunity to openly discuss nationalist doctrines. The statue of Robert Emmett, which still stands in the band course in the Golden Gate Park, was donated by Mayor James Phelan, the son of Irish immigrants. Rebel Cork Ladies Association. Founded in 1913 by ladies from County Cork, Their first grand ball was held on April 17, 1915, with the $95 proceeds going to the volunteers in Ireland. Their minutes tell us that the Knights of the Red Branch were very supportive of the ball. In response to the rising, the sisters, as they then called each other, held another ball at which they raised $100 for the Irish Relief Fund. Rebel Cork Benevolent Association. Members of the Rebel Cork Benevolent Association responded to the news of the rising with a donation of $1,000 to the Irish Relief Fund on July 17, 1916. $1,000 is the equivalent of about $23,000 in 2016 money. By May 11, 1922, their minutes reflect that their assets include $5,000 in Irish Liberty bonds. Ancient Order of Hibernians, a divided house. In the early 1800s, the Ancient Order of Hibernians were truly a secret society. According to their website, even minute books used member numbers instead of names to protect identities. By 1916, both in Ireland and the United States, the Ancient Order of Hibernians were divided into two factions: those who supported a physical overthrow of the British government in Ireland and those who preferred to remain in the United Kingdom with home rule. It is clear from this excerpt from the San Francisco Leader newspaper that the men of Division 17 were supporters of the rising, with their contribution to the Irish Relief Fund. Irish Relief Fund, Division 17, AOH, collected by P.B. Mahoney, $250. Ellen Ryan Jolie, Ladies' Ancient Order of Hibernians fiery leader. The Ladies' Ancient Order of Hibernians at the national level clearly favored the physical overthrow of the British government in Ireland. Mrs. Ellen Ryan Jolie, national president, was a good friend of Irish Republican leader O'Donovan Rossa and the only woman listed as a pallbearer at his funeral at St. Peter's Church, Staten Island. She was also one of the 3 LAOH women who addressed the U.S. Congress in 1918 in support of the recognition of the Irish Republic. Hibernian Rifles, a paramilitary organization. The Irish Rifles was an auxiliary of the Ancient Order of Hibernians created to defend Irish Catholics. Throughout the United States and Ireland, branches of the Rifles appear to have been organized and then disbanded depending on the needs of the time, largely independent of each other. An American branch in Atlanta, Georgia, successfully defended a church which was being threatened by Sherman's troops during the Civil War. Founded in 1913, one Irish branch marched in O'Donovan Rossa's funeral procession to Glasnevin and participated in the rising. In January of 1917, a branch existed in San Francisco, probably closely associated with Clan Nagal, like many other branches in the United States. Cumann na mBan. Like their sisters in Ireland, the women of Irish blood in San Francisco actively supported the cause of Irish nationalism, politically and culturally, as witnessed by this advertisement for a meeting at the old KRB Hall on January 11, 1917. Knights of the Red Branch. If you look through the San Francisco city directories of the early 1900s, you can find lists of malicious and secret societies for all to see. The Knights of the Red Branch, or KRB, was one such secret society, according to the 1916 city directory. A branch of Clan Nagal in 1916, the KRB was dedicated to the establishment of an independent Irish Republic. In 1909, the members of the KRB met at their hall at 1133 Mission Street each Wednesday under the leadership of their superintendent, Tom Desmond, who was the sheriff of San Francisco. An excerpt from the San Francisco Sheriff's Department tells us that it's not often that a person who helps engineer an infamous international prison break is later elected county sheriff. Tom Desmond did that and became a hero to a generation of 19th century Irish Americans.